Alright, buddy, I'll try to make this painless. So, what you're going to do tomorrow, and on all new groups this week, is go over what we did on Thursday night. I changed this part down here at the bottom. I put another sentence on there at the very end, right before they fill out these 4 boxes. Why do we want, have, and do in these areas? Okay? So what I want them to look at is, what are they after in the arousal? Are they after a high, or are they after connection? So it's both healthy and unhealthy. But I want them to figure this out before you tell them what they're really doing, as you probably already understand. This is what they're going to be doing probably next week. Thursday night, maybe they may be already doing this, and I'm going to draw on the board how to do this one right here, okay? So, we have the 4 areas, which are arousal, plateau, orgasm, and this is resolution. This is Johnson & Johnson's model, and what I've done is I've adapted it to fit a sexual addiction model, okay? So, in healthy sexuality, and I want them to answer these questions first before you do, alright? In healthy sexuality, what is arousal about? Okay, so when we're aroused, when we're when we're beginning a sexual act, okay, what's this about? Why do we want to do it? Okay, biologically, of course, there's procreation. We're wired for that, all those types of things. But with our prefrontal cortex, what's sex about? You know, particularly more so for women, or who are people who have the capacity to be intimate in a healthy way. All right? So arousal is about, to me, the dance. All right? It's what we do in courtship. And if you think about that, it's not a quick thing. It doesn't have to be 0 to 60. Now, in most cases, with people who don't use sex compulsively, 0 to 60 sometimes isn't a bad thing, and even with people who can differentiate between healthy and unhealthy sex, none of the people in the new groups are able to do this. Maybe a couple people in our latter groups, but it's about taking time. It's about flirting, it's touching, it's the act of getting close to someone. So we're inviting, that's another good word, closeness. Right? We're trying to get close to our partner. Right? There's a lot of, this is a tender time. Right? So if you think about it, if you tell these guys that this is what it's for, and have them come up with, you know, healthy, what this is about, they're going to start seeing that none of their behaviors in compulsive sexuality have any of these, right? It's not about trying to connect, all right? So arousal is the beginning of connection. Right. Then we transfer on, and you tell them about the plateau. The plateau is the very act of sex itself. So this is when we're actually having sex. Alright? So, why is that important for this? Because in healthy sexuality, well, first of all, there's procreation. And that's a given, alright? That's why we have sex, biologically. But in the prefrontal cortex, why we're having sex is to share what? Intimacy, vulnerability, authenticity. Right? It's an expression of who we really are. So that's important to remember. It's this expression. And it's about intimacy. It's an intimate act. We allow other people in. Allow in. Alright? It's when we're expressing our love for someone else. It's an open system. Not closed. Okay? Orgasm is the cultivation of all these things. Alright? And it's nature's reward to keep our species alive. Nature's reward to keep our species alive. So it's not necessary in the act of intimacy. So particularly women will say a lot, if the sex act is really intimate, they don't care about orgasm. The guy's much more about orgasm. He's much more about making the woman orgasm, because then he feels like he's got some power and he did something right, and he's the man, that type of stuff. But healthy sexuality does not have to end in orgasm. This is the important part, right? It's the sharing part. And if there's a lot of sharing, most likely it's going to end in orgasm. Finally, what we have is we have the resolution stage. This is what's known as afterglow. This is when you and I take off. Well, we take our partners with us and we go to IHOP and have pancakes. Afterglow, right? This is joy. There's a sense of peace. There's increased connection. There's increased vulnerability. There's increased authenticity. We just shared our most intimate act with another person. Alright? It's about that connection. There's bliss here. Right? This is a real feel-good state. Alright? So here, dopamine starting to rush, epinephrine, those types of things. Dopamine, epinephrine, oxytocin, serotonin, definitely a ton of dopamine. This is where oxytocin comes in the most. This is the bonding chemical, right? Serotonin, dopamine, serotonin and oxytocin, so there's calm here. Now, that's what we teach them about that. However, what we also teach them is this, is that compulsive sex or sexual addiction is just about this. So look at how narrow this is. Alright? And look at the steep curve and the steep drop off. Alright? So the whole deal about this is the arousal is immediate. I sent you this sheet so you'll be able to see. Alright? But it's immediate. There's nothing to do with connection there. It's all about lowering sympathetic charge, or if the person's hypo, if they're in the depressed cycle or they're hypocharged, then it's about increasing sympathetic activation. So we're using sex to mess with our feelings, our emotions, our body, what we're dealing with. Okay, so this is it. This is what we do. All right. So it's immediate. It's arousal. It totally skips the plateau. All right. Don't know doubt if you ever did this, but when you're having sex with a hooker, you are definitely not after intimacy. You really don't want that. Procreation. It's not about sharing. Although, in my case, I think it was about sharing some shame. It's not intimacy. It's not vulnerable. It's not authentic. It's not about expression. And I'm not using this word in a bad way, in a religious way, but it's very lustful. It's, you know, more involved with just, you know, that part of the brain where there's nothing to do with connection. In fact, healthy sexual addiction is about not feeling these things. Okay, because remember the wounds to intimacy when we were growing up in our connection system. Now this is stuck on high, our protection system. So we're trying to protect this stuff. We're not going to allow people in. So we use sex as a way to escape intimacy, as a way to escape vulnerability, authenticity, and a way to escape expression. And what sex addiction's always about is this. Alright? They want to feel good. That's it. Alright? So we do that over and over, and it totally messes up this part of the healthy sexual plateau. Also, the difference between healthy and unhealthy sexuality is that in the resolution state, we hate the resolution state because the minute orgasm's over, we're back to consciousness. Alright? And so we're going to have shame, guilt, remorse, self-loathe. Alright? So if a person's acting out with a partner and they're still trying to practice healthy sexuality, they get blocked. It's a physiological takeover, okay? They can say all they want that they know the difference between healthy and unhealthy sex. It's not up to their brain. It's not up to their thinking part of their brain. It's up to the limbic and the old brain that's hijacking and taking them over as a way to protect them from vulnerability, authenticity, and intimacy. Alright? So they're not there. And often partners, as you go along in this, you're going to find out that the partner really notices that the addict is never present during sex. So this takes a long time to kind of practice and also start to heal. And this is why we also do suggest the 90-day abstinence period, and we get a lot of kickback on that. But it's exactly this. It's for them to start understanding how to do this, the dance, the courtship, the inviting closeness, and the tenderness with vulnerability, expression, and authenticity without getting hijacked, okay? Because sex chemicals are like rocket fuel, and if they've been using them as a way to cope, even if they're practicing healthy sexuality, they can do this. And you'll notice that in, like, Dave on Thursday nights. You don't know this a lot about him, but every time he has sex with his girlfriend, he has to masturbate for a week afterwards, like a lot, because his body is still stuck on high. So what we're doing is we're trying to calm down the nervous system right here, and then we can start entertaining and inviting them to practice with these things, which, by the way, is what we're doing in group anyway. We're practicing vulnerability, intimacy, and authenticity. We're allowing them to express themselves while they're also understanding their wounds and looking at this psychoeducational stuff. So, call me, write me, text me with any questions. Hope that explains what we're doing. Take care, brother.